Everyone. My name is Kimberly Holiday. I bring you greetings from Pflugerville, where I serve as City Council Place number 3. By trade, I am a social psychologist. I show up in the world as a restorative justice practitioner, published book author, all things. But above all of that, I am a leader with lived experience. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and while we're using this month to bring awareness to this issue, this is something that I address 365 days of the year. It is my hope, as someone with lived experience, to model the potential to live with more joy despite life circumstances. I'm honored today to be your facilitator for Together We Will Heal. I thank you all for being here this afternoon. Once again, I welcome you to the Together We Will Heal Forum organized by the Central Texas African American Family Support Conference and Integral Care. The conference's vision is to educate the African American community on mental health, substance use disorder, and intellectual and developmental disabilities, as well as the total well-being of African Americans. We hope this forum will provide the opportunity for you to participate in conversations that offer education, encouragement, and resources. Before we get started, I want to go over a couple of housekeeping rules. We are asking that you please keep yourself muted in order to honor the space for our speaker today. I want you to know that this will be an interactive experience and you will have time for interaction. You can always raise your virtual hand and unmute yourself when you've been called on to speak. And number 3, some of these topics can be triggering. And so if you get emotional or overwhelmed, it's okay to turn off your camera and take care of yourself and to handle those emotions privately. If you should find that you need additional support and you need to talk to someone, please call us at Integral Care. We have a hotline. It's 24/7. This number is good always. 512-472-HELP. That's 512-472-4357. I also just want to remind you that this forum is actually being recorded. I like to put that out in the universe right off the top. All right. Today's topic is mental health, the power of closing the humanity gap. Let me repeat that again. Woo, there's a lot just in that topic. Mental health, the power of closing the humanity gap. Our speaker today is someone that I know, I love, and I trust. Her name is Dr. Patricia Pickles. She is a mother, an advocate for mental health and wellness. She is an educational czar. Now, I had to go ask Google what exactly is a czar. That's CZAR. That means she is a specialist in what she does. She's a humanitarian, an innovator, a trailblazer, a visionary, and an author. Dr. Pickles has navigated the trenches of the mental health system for a quarter of a century. Her extensive professional background includes frontline experience as a teacher, an assistant principal, a principal, an adjunct professor, a senior director for the Texas Department of Education, also known as TEA. She's been a project coordinator for the Regional Office of Education, a chief academic officer, a superintendent of schools, and an educational leadership and mental health consultant. Without any further ado, let me present to some and introduce to others the wise woman. Her name is Dr. Patricia Pickles. I turn it over to you. I love you.
What a wonderful introduction. I knew I was in good hands when they said you were moderating, and then Lady J set me up. I'm like, I couldn't be in better hands. So, okay, let's get started. One thing I didn't realize is how much information I had packed into this presentation. So I'm going to try to pace myself as I go along so that you're here with me. Now, mental health and closing the humanity gap, I believe, is where we need to start. When I say that this presentation aims to blend personal experience with academic knowledge. I want you to understand that sometimes it's going to seem like I'm teaching, and I need you to let me be me because I am a teacher first. And then sometimes it's going to seem like I'm providing research evidence to back up what I'm saying. That's what I do. So accept me as I present my story. And I want those of you who are actually going through this journey to know that you are not alone. You are not alone. Closing the humanity gap, the power of storytelling. I want you to follow me for a minute. Imagine, if you will, a mother picking her son up from the hospital. With his fragile body, he's wearing pants twice his size. He's 5'7" and 137 pounds. The mother decides to stop at the grocery store before going home. While trying to hold his pants up, the son drops a 5-pound bag of sugar. As he tries to reach his mother, who has the cart, the sugar seeps from the bag. Regardless of him repeating, I am with my mom, I am with my mom, the store manager dismissed him and told him never to come back. The workers at that store expressed their concern, and they expressed how they thought the incident would escalate. Now, this is a true story, and this is just one out of many incidents. When my son was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, I was a superintendent of schools, overseeing pre-K through 12th grade educational systems. I retired at 55 years old and became an advocate and a caretaker. I have advocated for my son and others like him for 25 years. Transferring my experience and expertise in education, I became a lifelong learner in mental health. Along with my son and daughter, I published the book, Chronic Mental Illness, a Living Nightmare. Our pseudonames indicated that we were the B family. When my son accompanies me, it is not uncommon for us both to return home traumatized by the actions and behaviors of others. At the tender age of 16, my son was struck down by paranoid schizophrenia. A mother's worst nightmare is that she cannot help her own child. It was like a forest fire had swept through his brain. I was confused. He suddenly went from wanting to be an architect to wanting to be a rapper. He was a very well-dressed gentleman, and he became someone that I did not recognize. He was deteriorating right in front of me. After his diagnosis, he was prescribed about 7 medications that he was supposed to take daily. He was so sick that he didn't even know he was ill. Actually, it's called agnosia. You're so sick that you don't even know you're sick. After my son's diagnosis, I clearly remember driving from the hospital. I saw people experiencing homelessness on the street. with different lenses. I was horrified and I was devastated. I thought to myself, that could be my son. A profound emotional impact on my young son. I blamed myself for getting a divorce when my son was young, and it definitely had an impact on him. I blamed his father because he was with his father for 6 months when this transformation occurred. I blamed the obstetrician for using the clips during his delivery. Religious people told me that my son was possessed by demons and they needed to be cast out. I was frightened to death. And I had no direction. For 10 years, I was silent. I was silent because I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to describe what I was going through or what I was seeing. Eventually, after hearing a presentation at church, I began educating myself via NAMI. After hearing that presentation, I knew that churches could play a large part in terms of reducing the stigma around mental illness. Mental illness affects the entire family. The picture that you can barely see was a picture drawn by my son of me when he actually saw me distressed. This was a true action picture that I chose to share. There are many problems with mental illness, more than I can name. But in this presentation, I tend to allude to 5. Chronic stress that comes with it, homelessness, suicide, stigma, and lack of access to treatment. Chronic stress profoundly affects our health. I know, it almost killed me. I remember the doctors at the end of my hospital bed, at the foot of my hospital bed, discussing how I don't think she's going to make it. She may not make this. Did you know that 75 to 90% of all illnesses have one factor in common? And that is chronic stress. Chronic stress eventually turns into physical pain. While I could not control my circumstances, I had to change how my body and my mind was reacting to the trauma. I had to say myself, what does research tell us? Let me share a bit of research. Dr. Aaron Beck in the late 1970s did a 12-week study with individuals who were experiencing the same level of depression. In group A, they received medication only. In group B, they received self-talk therapy only. In group A, 20% showed complete recovery. In group B, 75% showed complete recovery through self-talk. Now, this is not a debate between medication. It's not a debate between self-therapy talk. But what I am trying to emphasize is our mind and our way of thinking. Therapy, the role of therapy cannot be underestimated. Psychosomatic diseases, according to the Mayo Clinic today, can have an impact on our somatic diseases such as anxiety, depression, chronic pain, and tension headaches. So if we are aware of our self-talk, some things we can control. And as caregivers, I think that that is invaluable. That's something that we definitely need to know if we are going to survive. I developed a model entitled RAYLA because I'm used to being a creator. I created things, programs when I was in education, and I created RAYLA for me to save my life. RAYLA, we may not be schizophrenic, but we all hear voices in our head. I can guarantee you that. Do you realize how much those voices impact you and your behavior and your survival? We call it our self-talk. RAYLA stands for recognize, acknowledge, act, listen, and analyze. Recognize your emotions and be present. Acknowledge your negative self-talk and intentionally redirect your thoughts and your feelings from the limbic system to the prefrontal cortex. In other words, shift from emotion to logic. Without this step, I was taking cognitive shortcuts. And cognitive shortcuts and emotional triggers can become habitual. Understand complex feelings. For example, I listened to my son, and he said that my tone of voice and my way of approaching him helped to trigger his emotions. This process worked for me because it helped me focus on things I could control rather than the things that were out of my control. I learned to control my fears related to my son's illness and my frustration with the fragmented mental health system. I learned to redirect my thoughts and actions and be present. Like physical exercise, RAYLA is a mental exercise that can be implemented immediately. What works for my son? I also studied that. What works for my son? Number one, the support from providers such as Integral Care SPAC team has been a tremendous help. However, I also feel like their hands are sometimes tied. Even without number two, taking a shot every 3 weeks, even without pills, I noticed a significant change in his mood, stability, and behavior. Number three, speaking to him calmly, avoiding shouting matches, and giving alternatives instead, using I statements. Teaching a life skills curriculum was extremely helpful. 5, providing privileges for good behavior. And 6, having a job that gives him a sense of responsibility and dignity that allows him to be a man. Over the years, I would like to think that I have grown and my perspective has changed. While I continue to research, I now realize there is no silver bullet out here. No silver bullet answer. When I embrace hope, eventually a relapse is likely to occur. I expect that now. I accept that with treatment, he can get better, but he's resistant to treatment. I am in more control of how I react to his behavior and our circumstances. Instead of worrying about him 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, I am present. I recognize my self-talk and I am present. I pay more attention to self-care than I used to, including exercise, eating healthy, drinking water, and pampering myself now and then. I realized my son's illness was not anyone's fault. I stopped pointing fingers and blaming others. While I love my son unconditionally, for safety reasons, I sometimes must distance myself from him. The problem, what I learned from my son's illness is that the mentally ill definitely need emergency services. They definitely need medical care and sustainable support. But you know what? That is not enough. They, just like everyone else, they also need socialization and a sense of community. Do you realize how many of those suffering from mental illness have no friends or relatives to talk to? Loneliness, isolation, and constant rejection only heightens mental health risks. However, this change of mindset cannot happen unless there's a paradigm shift in our thinking and our philosophy. Neurodiversity. Neurodiversity was one of the answers for me in terms of thinking positively. Neurodiversity is the recognition of a person's worth and dignity, regardless of their circumstances or mental health condition. Neuroplasticity, on the other hand, is the variance of one brain to another. We all think differently. In addition to mental health, neurodiversity is transferable to fields such as faith-based institutions, education, workforce. According to a 2022 article by the RAND Corporation, even national security is exploring the benefits of neurodiversity. Neuroplasticity. Now, as an educator, we were taught that at birth, the brain is at 25% capacity. By 3 years old, it is at 80%. And by age 7, it is 90% of its adult size. While this has significant implications for early childhood education, current research reveals that while the brain is only 3 pounds, guess what? It can be reshaped, a term called neuroplasticity. Studies from Harvard, Stanford, and Dr. Norman Doidge suggest that one day we will be replacing brain cells. Let's look at samples of neurodiversity and neuroplasticity. If we're going to talk about the brain, let's look at the brain for a change. The human brain. The brain is a complex, vital 3-pound organ that organizes and leads the nervous system. The prefrontal cortex controls judgment, logic, and problem solving, while the limbic system controls emotions, behavior, and long-term memory. Let's look at an example of neuroplasticity. Chronic traumatic encephalopathy, also known as CTE, is a condition caused by continuous trauma and blows to the head. Cells and brain matter are redistributed. This transformation can impact a person's thinking, concentration, and mood. Now, neuroplasticity is the reconfiguring of the brain. In this case, for the worse. Bilingualism and neuroplasticity. Here we have the brain of someone who speaks multiple languages. Dr. Bach and colleagues from Scotland conducted a longitudinal study released in 2014. There were 835 subjects. They were tested at 11 years old, and they were retested in their early 70s. Research results revealed and strongly indicate that bilingualism deters dementia and builds cognition. Neuroplasticity is the reshaping of the brain, in this case for the better. And then we have the brain of someone who has a severe and chronic brain disorder. While the brain has 100 billion nerve cells, hundreds of trillions of connections exist among them. The brain has more switches and connections than any computer on Earth. If a circuit goes out on a computer, what happens? It is the same with the brain. Of all the different brain types, we tend to stigmatize and avoid those diagnosed with a mental illness. Why is this? Stigma. Stigma stands in the way of socialization and treatment. When I say the word severe chronic mental illness, what thoughts come to your mind? What images come to your mind? Would it be reasonable to say that those suffering from mental confusion are avoided due to stigma, indifference, or fear? My personal experiences, research, and literature in the field indicate that, number one, there is no conclusive evidence of which comes first, mental illness or addiction. However, this dual diagnosis affects about 50% of those diagnosed with severe mental illness. Number two, regardless of socioeconomic status or race, 1 out of 5 children and 1 out of 4 adults will experience mental confusion in their lifetime. You have likely know someone in your family, or you know of someone who is battling with this disease. Due to the bureaucratic quagmires and policies that are currently in place, you can have all the status, all the money in the world, and still face barriers to access to treatment. But number 3, without medication and treatment, these individuals can become aggressive and even violent. Let's be truthful about it. That's why the access to treatment is so critical. But these individuals are more likely to be victimized and taken advantage of than to be the perpetrator. Number 4, some individuals believe they should straighten themselves up, pull themselves up by the bootstrap and get their act together. In the words of Martin Luther King Jr., it's all right to think a man should lift him by his bootstraps, but it is absolutely cruel to say that to a bootless man. Maybe you have, or someone has seen a psychosomatic drama or a thriller where there were rows and rows of beds with hospital patients. Individuals need to know that this is fiction. In the United States, our most extensive mental health facilities remain our county jails. There is no parity between physical and mental health. Accumulated days are limited for the mentally ill. My son is already out of hospital days. So what's left for him? It is easier to get a long-term bed in a prison cell than it is to get a long-term bed in a hospital or mental health facility. Mental illness is a disease and should not be treated as a crime. Getting long-term services for them is nearly impossible. You should not have to commit mass murder to gain access to appropriate mental health care and treatment. Now, this is from this mother's perspective. Understand that I've been in this 25 years. I started off actually testifying in front of the US Congress in Washington, going to the Texas Mental Health Committee. And I have seen little change. So understand that from this mother's perspective, my personal perspective, I believe that we are committing genocide. That's exactly what we're doing. And we're getting rid of an unwanted population. What I have learned through power is that you don't have to go after someone to destroy them. What you do is remove support, and they will be destroyed. That's where I am right now. What will help others? The problem with ostracizing the mentally ill from society and from ourselves is that you create an artificial life ecosystem. You try to pretend like they don't exist. And you miss the opportunity to learn from them. Things like patience, compassion, empathy, overcoming barriers, and creative thinking outside the box. We can also learn from others. I would like to share with you a poem written by my son. It's entitled, Why I Love Me So Much. Truth, once you find it, you never want to let it go. I walk through doors I dislike. Schools can no longer harm me because although they dissect me, I can't let go of me. I am worth more than the men who tease me through the seasons. The horror of criticism aimed at me hurts. Yet you say this is the crew of today's leaders? Their mimics are embarrassing. Maybe we should take a closer look at the definition of leadership. Sometimes I react to dirty remarks, and other times I choose not to. I was taught to recognize ignorance, so I struggle to maintain my character. Now, this is the opinion and the thoughts of someone coming from the victim. The picture that you see, my son is now grown, but this is the picture that I carry around with me on a daily basis. because it reminds me that my son is still inside his body. What I ask of you is to get involved and to stay involved. Tell the story. Tell the strategies that work for you. For social and academic reasons, we made the shift to inclusion in our public schools. We did that for a reason. Now it's time to make that shift in our society. I have been on this journey for, as I said, 25 years, and little has changed. That's very discouraging. But at the same time, how discouraging would it be if we didn't have a voice, if we stopped speaking? We must continue to let our voices be heard. Understanding the problems of our mental connections and interactions. The secret to change lies within you and your connections and interactions with others. You do not have to be a mental health professional to recognize and acknowledge humanity. Keep advocating for those who cannot advocate for themselves. If I cannot do great things, which I started off trying to do, I can do small things in a great way. And so can you. Thank you.
Wow, awesome. Are you done, Dr. Pickles? I was just all into that. That
Yes.
was beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much. I was actually just sending you a message that you still had like 11 more minutes. However, we're going to go ahead and open up this time for questions. I do have some questions in the chat we would like to address first. Once again, thank you, Dr. Pickles, for showing up real and authentic, for bringing your pain here, to show us how we can turn our pain into purpose. Thank you all once again for being here today. One of the questions we have in the chat is if you could share some resources that were available to you and your family, and your son, you and your son during this time.
The main resources, as I said, it was the introduction by the church, and representatives from NAMI were there, and they were speaking a language. They were describing my son and his behaviors, and I had never heard anyone do that. I've never been able to hear anyone relate that specifically, so I ended up following them. So I would say NAMI is an excellent resource.
Awesome. Thank you so much. For those of you who don't know, NAMI is National Alliance on Mental Illness. I am serving as well on the board of directors, and it is our intent to be more present in the BIPOC community. I've always known about NAMI, but I did not think it was for us, and it is. There is a Central Texas branch, and so we can definitely share information about that as well in our comments. Another question that came up
And
was,
let me say that NAMI was one of the only groups where I felt comfortable sharing my emotions, sharing my feelings. They were very confidential. They understood. It was like we were a family.
absolutely. If you're needing additional supports individually or for your family, there are in-person supports as well as virtual. We've tried to do our best to break any barriers to that. One of the next questions is, can you please speak on how the church community can do better with how they respond to mental health challenges in the faith community? We know that you just can't pray away mental illness. My pastor, because there was some group homes nearby, used to lock the doors, and I finally told him, "Don't lock me out." Yeah, can you talk to us a little bit about mental health and faith communities and how they can be a better support?
Well, there were also churches that my son was locked out of. He was told he could not attend. And religious people have good intentions. And I was looking for any answer I could find to free my son. I would travel to another country if they would release these demons. But what we need to understand is that mental illness is an illness like any other illness. Like my son is a level 4. That's like a level 4 cancer patient.
Mm.
It's a real illness. How do we look at it as a physical illness instead of being demon possessed? It's an illness like any other illness.
Mm. Thank you so much for that. In the chat, we also have Austin Mental Health Community is another organization that advocates for mental health. And then I just want to read this amazing comment from Dr. Moten. Thank you so much, Dr. Pickles, for your strength, your courage, and commitment to advocacy. I hear you and appreciate you and your willingness to use your voice. I am actually on my phone, and so I'm looking for some virtual hands at this time. If you'd like to turn on your camera or raise your virtual hand, we would love to have your voice in this space. I always say, especially those with lived experience, don't be silent. We definitely need to hear from you because something that you may say today could change the life of someone else. Remember that we do heal and we do recover. And I thank each of you for being here because it is your presence today that has created this safe space for Dr. Pickles to be able to share herself. Um, and I did see a picture of your daughter, Ida, up there. And so I'm sending you love and light during this month of Mother's Day as well. Grief has layers and it has no expiration, never goes away. Any hands out there?
Let me also say that NAMI taught me about my son's illness, but it also taught me so much more. I grew up thinking that I was shy. I realize now that that was really anxiety I was feeling.
Mm.
So it was not only an awakening for my son, but for me as well.
Mm. I don't know about any of you, but I just felt my eyes get a little bit watery as I resonate with that, telling everyone that I'm an introvert, maybe to also still keep myself safe, but it's still from trauma. It is some anxiety. Any hands out there? Oh, wait, I see one. Tiffany, go ahead and unmute yourself. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. First of all, I would like to say thank you so very much for putting this together. I wasn't able to attend the conference in person, so I've done the virtual ones, and you don't disappoint. And I'm just so thankful today because your story resonated so much with me because my own child is a minority, and the things that we have had to deal with, what you said, the things that we've dealt with in the church, the things that all of it resonates so well. I live in the Texas Panhandle, so resources are so scarce, and it is an everyday struggle and an everyday fight. My mother was a schizophrenic, so I also understand a paranoid schizophrenic at that. She disappeared 21 years ago, so, and I have my own lived experience with mental health. I am a certified family partner now, which is, I'm forever going to be doing this in some form or capacity. And so I just wanted to tell you thank you for your lived experiences because it is very isolating. And it does you feel very alone. And when you're the leader leading everybody else, it's so nice to hear somebody else. I feel full today, and I thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. Anaya, unmute yourself. The floor is yours.
Hi, cousin Patty. I have a question for you. I know
Yes.
you mentioned the many avenues and the many resources out there, and I was wondering, as me becoming a future teacher in close years, I was wondering how can I, as a teacher, create a safe space for my students that may be struggling with not only schizophrenia but also a various array of mental health issues or disparities? Because I know a lot of times in the classroom, there's people that aren't in the classroom making rules and, regulations that sometimes restrict us from bonding with the students and such like. But um, what what can I? Sorry, I was struggling. Sorry, but
Well,
what can I do?
it
Yeah.
stands up very clearly in my mind, the incidents. I didn't know a lot about mental illness, but I can point out in each incident where there was someone peculiar. I remember a third grade student who would run out of the class with no notice. She just running home, and teachers running after her. That's kind of dangerous. But I thought maybe it was separation anxiety.
Mm.
I didn't know. And then when I had a school assembly, everyone is expected to behave, because I understand that if one student misbehaves, then another one thinks they can. So there was one student that was not behaving appropriately. And I said, oh no, this can't happen. I took him to my office and I called his mother. I could tell his mother was feeling uncomfortable. And so I asked him to leave the room. And that's when she revealed all of her bruises and how he was attacking her. I wish I had known who to call to get her some support and help. And then I remember a middle school student. She was the African-American female. And during this time, it was busing. Busing was going on, so they were busing them to North Dallas. And one day, this young lady jumped on top of the tables, cussed everybody out, was threatening us. And I was thinking to myself, okay, she's not used to this environment. And then there was a high school student, and this is where I say it is so important to have a relationship with students.
Yeah.
There was one student, I could tell he was high, and he rose up out of his seat to attack me, and the other students rose up with him like, that's not gonna happen.
I know that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I love young people. My only issue today is that you're not supposed to touch them or hug them or
Yes, that's true. That's very true. I had a teacher that got in trouble recently.
that
Yeah, she
is
got
so
in trouble.
significant to me that you're able to do that. Want it. I mean, so
Yeah.
everyone doesn't get that at home.
Right, exactly. Exactly. Yes. Well, you did marvelous today. Good job, Cousin
Thank
P.
you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for your question. I'm gonna go to Dr. Moten, and then we'll go to Mr. Ron Cryer. Again, thank you all so much for your questions, Dr. Moten.
Good afternoon. First, just thank you for having this. Thank you for creating this space, Dr. Pickles. Just thank you for all that you have been. What some of you don't know is when I first met Nami, my mom was arrested. She had schizophrenia. She was arrested in Williamson County. And I had found NAMI by chance to get help and support to navigate getting my mom moved from Williamson County Jail to the state hospital. and Dr. Pickles was matched with me. And she asked me, what does your support look like? Even in the midst of her own journey. And Dr. Pickles, using her voice, has inspired me to use my voice wherever I go, even if I'm not in the country. And I believe you always have to give people their roses now. And Dr. Pickles, I give you your roses because your journey and who you are in this journey inspired me to be an advocate for my own mother. I didn't even know how to use my voice. But the way I watched you, and even when we started teaching the family to family class for NAMI and giving back to the community and showing them how to use their voice, I want to leave you all with this. The chairs that you are sitting in this moment, what made you choose the chair that you sat in? You sat in that chair because you believed it would support you. You sat in that chair because you are confident that it had everything that it needed to uphold you as you watch this amazing talk. I want to ask you, why don't we do that for our own mental health? What does your support look like? And do you have enough pillars underneath you to give you the support that you need to use your voice when needed and to be present for you? Dr. Pickles taught me in the midst of advocacy, you have to first take care of you. And some of us caregivers out there, we're so busy caring for everyone else that we neglect ourselves. And even when I went to that breaking point and attempted to take my own life because I neglected to take care of myself, Dr. Pickles came in and said, what does your support look like? Anytime you get a quiet space, I want you to ask yourself that question. What does your support look like? And is it enough? And if it isn't, just as confident you are sitting in that chair, I want you to get all the additional support you need to help you navigate this mental health journey. Dr. Pickles, I thank God for you and I love you, and you have been my gift for over some years. And I just thank you that you are the gift that just keeps on giving.
Thank you so much, Dr. Moten. Thank you so much. That's good. Make a mental note and put a post-it note on it. Who and what are your supports? All right, Ron, I'm turning it over to you. We have about 5 minutes left. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with all of you all in love and light. Those individuals or people, our sisters and brothers who we, identify as having some mental problems. Is it a possibility that they are operating on a different level than society, and that level is far faster than what they're ready to mix with, conjugate? Uh, have you, heard anything about that, Dr. Pickle?
Yes. And they think they're operating in a different realm. So yes, that's when I say listen for complex phrases. Yes, I can see that. I can see, and if you really listen to them, you can see sometimes that they are operating outside of the realm.
Yeah, so institutionally, they shouldn't be in a institution or a school system that one size fits all. I have friends who have autistic kids, and they're mathematical geniuses. So and I have relatives who they A+, performers in education, but they're operating differently. So it seems like we trying to put a square in a round hole to resolve things, and it looks kind of bleak as far as getting institutional help, meaning the government, and that maybe we should approach things in a more localized way.
Well, I don't really see any help, to be honest with you. As I said, my son is out of hospital days. So that means no more hospital stays for him. What's left? Getting long-term institutionalized care, that's off the table. What's left? Jail. That's why I think we are actually committing genocide.
Yeah, I'm in the Houston area, Harris County, and the sheriffs who are over the Harris County jail system pretty much say that most of the people incarcerated are there with mental problems. So, if we had mental care historically, it has become penal care now. So institutionally, we're not finding assistance. We have to find some kind of localized approach to get up to speed to those people who we think are not fitting into society as society expects them.
But don't you think in the great US of A, if we really recognize everyone as humans, as neurodiversity perpetuates, if we recognize people as humans, we could do better. We would do better. That's why I'm saying it may not be consciously, but I think it's simply genocide, getting rid of those who are undesirable.
Wow. Could be. The good old USA isn't all that, isn't all that great. I mean, yeah,
we got 2 minutes left.
Your good heart is not the heart that DC might have.
Right. Thank you so much, Ron. Thank you, Dr. Pickles. This has been an amazing conversation. We want to continue these conversations. And so we have these forums every third Wednesday of the month at 1:30. We invite you back. We encourage you to invite your friends and loved ones and providers to come to this. We also ask that you consider joining our Facebook page for additional information. And as the serving on the program committee for the Central Texas African American Family Support Conference, I also want to remind you to save the date and to mark your calendars for our 25th anniversary. 25 years of bringing awareness to mental health. That'll be February the 4th and the 5th of 2025. Once again, the 25th Central Texas African American Family Support Conference, February 4th and 5th, 2025, I believe, at the Palmer Event Center. It will be, like they say in church, you definitely don't want to miss this. Once again, I want to thank each of you for being here today. Dr. Pickles, let's just give her a virtual round of applause, if you will. Send some hearts, send some love, do it. Yes. Love you, Dr. Pickles. Once again, my name is.
I think I was first. I think I was first on the list because I'm the rookie, right?
You're the best because you're the czar. And if y'all don't know what czar means, go look it up. Dr. Pickles, I had to go look it up. So I've determined that during this month of mental awareness, I am a mental health advocate czar. I'm owning that.
All right.
With my lived experience, I will no longer feel shame. Anyway, thank you all for being here. It is 2:30. We're being true to our time. We'll see you again on the next third Wednesday in June at 1:30. Thank you all for being here. Do something loving and kind for yourself today. I'm at Central Market. I always overspend. Y'all have a